Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kara, and in today's video I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about purchasing vacant or raw land. If you've ever started to look into this process, you may have noticed that it's quite a bit different from purchasing a pre-existing home. And I know with home prices going up quite rapidly, a lot of people are starting to consider buying raw land and building a home on it. So I thought that this video would be really relevant to a lot of people. Before I dive into the content, I do want to say that I'm going to try to keep this as high level as I can. This is a pretty complex process, but I just want to give you the main bullet points so that you can understand what to expect if this is something you're considering doing. I'm going to break up the video into a few different sections, those being financing, speaking to a builder, searching for a property, and actually going under agreement and purchasing a property. Let's start out by talking about financing. So there are a couple ways that you can go about purchasing a piece of land. One way would be by using cash. This will of course be the most simple way to purchase land and also the most desirable to a seller. You could also look into financing. I do want to mention here that financing a piece of raw land is much different than financing a pre-existing home. And because of this, there are different lenders that will actually loan you money for land. So you can't really just go up to your bank or the mortgage lender that you used for your home and ask them for a land loan. There are specific companies that offer these types of products, and there are only a couple that offer this in the Asheville region. If this is something that you're looking to do, feel free to reach out to me and I will be happy to provide you some local contacts that will be able to help you. One other thing I want to mention about financing is that if you're considering getting a loan, please note that the interest rates are going to be significantly higher than they would be for a pre-existing home, and also the down payment requirements are going to be larger. Let's jump into the second category, and that is speaking to a builder. Now this is something that I recommend doing before you even go out and look at properties, and definitely before you consider writing an offer on one. There are a few reasons for this. Something I've noticed is that buyers tend to be pretty surprised at how much it actually costs to build a home. For example, around the Asheville region, I've been hearing quotes anywhere between $250 per square foot at the absolute cheapest up to $350. That's going to be kind of your typical range, at least at the time of recording, but I've even heard of prices being around $450 per square foot. There are, of course, a lot of different factors that go into the cost of a home, those being things like location, which builder you end up choosing, the quality of work, materials and finishes that you choose, etc. Another reason that I recommend speaking to a builder before actually going out and looking at land is because you're going to need to have some sort of idea about the size and style of the home that you want to build before actually going under agreement. Now this isn't exactly a requirement, but it is highly recommended. If you're going to need to get a septic permit or a well permit, in order to actually get that, you're going to have an idea of the footprint of your home. In other words, the amount of square feet that are actually going to be on the main level. Also, any sort of detached structures that you're going to want to build, let's say a detached garage, for example, and also roughly where your driveway is going to be. All of these things need to be known before you can actually get your permits. The reason for this is that you're going to need to have a surveyor go out and physically stake the property so that when the county inspector comes out to see where a septic system or well might go, they know exactly where the structures are going to be placed. Okay, now let's move on to the actual process of looking for land. So of course, before you go out and look at any properties, you're going to need to have some sort of idea of what you're looking for. The general parameters are going to be things like location, amount of acreage that you're looking for, if you would like to have views or maybe a stream on your property, and sometimes you want to consider the steepness. Here are a few different things to consider when searching for your perfect piece of land. There are times where you'll see a property that's been sitting on the market for a few hundred days. I've even seen them at 1,000 days or more. There are a few reasons why properties might sit on the market for a very long time. Some reasons would be it's too steep to build on, maybe it backs up to something that's undesirable like a junkyard, or it has some other quality that makes it difficult to build on. Perhaps the terrain there is really rocky, or it's really inaccessible. Typically, the more buildable the land is, the more expensive it's going to be. So if you want a piece of land that's already been partially cleared and leveled out for a home, that's going to be your prime piece of land versus something that's on the side of a mountain, wooded and relatively steep. Something else to consider are the restrictions that are actually on the piece of land. So if you're considering doing something like a short-term rental, in other words, an Airbnb, or maybe you want to park an RV or a tiny home on the property, camp on the property, etc. If you want to do any of these kinds of things, you definitely have to be aware of the restrictions in that area. Your best bet will be to look for unrestricted open-use land. However, there are some HOAs out there that might still be suitable for you. There are a few different HOA restrictions that are pretty common, those being restrictions against manufactured homes, in other words, single-wide homes, minimum square footage requirements, an architectural review process, and sometimes there can be restrictions around the actual number of buildings you can have on one lot. So for example, let's say you want to have a single-family home, but you also want to have a detached garage with an apartment on top. Some HOAs won't necessarily allow this. You might also run into restrictions against livestock, having a permanent RV on your property, and some other restrictions. Something else to note is that if your property is close to town, there's a possibility that you'll have access to public water and public sewer. If this is the case, there's typically a tap-in fee. If there is no access to public water and public sewer, there's a possibility that there's already a septic system and/or a well that has been installed on the property, though this is typically very rare. Most lots that you're going to see on the market will require you to install your own septic system and well. Sometimes there will be a septic or well permit on file if the sellers had actually already gone through that permitting process, but do note that these expire after 5 years if a septic or well has not been installed. Here in North Carolina, when you submit a permit application to the county, you'll need to tell them the number of bedrooms you would like in your new home. The reason for this is that they need to perk the land to make sure that it will actually support the number of bedrooms that you want to build. This is one of the main reasons why I recommend going through the permitting process while you are in your due diligence period before you actually go ahead and purchase the land. This is because, let's say you want to build a 3-bedroom home, but you do the perk test and it ends up only perking for a 2-bedroom. This is not an issue that you want to run into after you've already purchased your property. Okay, let's move on to the final category, and that is actually placing an offer and purchasing a piece of land. So just like when purchasing a home, you'll need to come up with a purchase price. And this is something that your realtor should be able to help you do by looking at comparable sales in the area. You'll also need to choose amounts for your due diligence deposit as well as your earnest money deposit. Now, in case you haven't seen any of my other videos or you're very new to the process, I'll briefly go over what these are. Due diligence is an amount that is non-refundable and is something that is due to the seller upon going under agreement. This amount is totally arbitrary and is not necessary, but in this competitive market that we're in, it's highly recommended. When purchasing a plot of land, the due diligence amounts typically are a lot lower than they would be for pre-existing. Your earnest money deposit is an amount that's due within 5 days of going under agreement and is held with your attorneys until settlement. This amount is also typically lower when purchasing land versus purchasing an actual home. Now remember, your due diligence deposit is not refundable. However, your earnest money is refundable during your due diligence period, and both of these deposits will go towards your settlement costs if you end up purchasing the property. A big thing to note when purchasing land is that your due diligence period is going to be significantly longer. So when purchasing a home, typically the due diligence period is somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks, depending on whether you're getting inspections and appraisal, etc. However, when purchasing land, your due diligence period will often need to be somewhere between 2 and 3 months. This is because getting a survey and getting permits done through the county can take quite a long time. So what exactly happens during the due diligence period? Well, this is where you're going to research all of the costs that are involved with actually building on this property. So here's where you're going to work very closely with your builder and your realtor and also the county to make sure that you can get all permits that are required, surveys that are needed, and look into various construction costs for that specific lot. The first thing you'll need to do is get a property survey and also flag out the proposed structures, as I had mentioned earlier. This is what's required in order to get a septic or well permit. A lot of times you'll also have to have your builder dig backhoe pits. The reason for this is that when the county permitter comes out, they will use these to test the permeability of the soil. If you're getting a loan, this is also the time period where you will get your appraisal done. Soon after going under agreement, you'll need to work closely with your builder to submit a permit application to the county. Every county is different in terms of what their requirements are, so I would definitely ask your realtor about this. It's really important to get this application in as soon as possible because the county can tend to be pretty backed up. During your due diligence period, you'll also want to research costs like grading the land, tree removal, septic installation costs, well installation costs, etc. Depending on what builder you're using, they might include some of these costs in the building cost, but not always. So I would definitely talk to them and see what exactly is included in their price per square foot. Once you've gone through all of these steps, you'll be ready to move forward and purchase your piece of land. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, this can take somewhere between 2 and 3 months to actually be completed. So definitely keep that in mind if you're wanting to build something sooner rather than later. As you probably noticed, purchasing a piece of land is quite a bit different than purchasing a pre-existing home. And it's very important that you are working with a realtor that understands this process in depth, that can help you each step of the way. If you're looking to purchase land around the Asheville area, I would be more than happy to help you through this process. If you haven't watched any of my previous videos or you're unfamiliar with my channel, I am a local real estate broker here in the Asheville area, and I would love to help you own a piece of North Carolina. As always, if there are any questions that you would like me to answer, please go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, and also feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'll leave my contact info down below as well as at the end of this video. Feel free to call me, text me, email me, whatever you would like to do. I am more than happy to speak with you. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with your family and friends. Alright everyone, well, I hope you found this video helpful, and I will see you very soon in the next one.